Are you a conscious caster, a subconscious caster, or an unconscious caster? Your mindset in casting, your growth mindset, is it fragile? Is it resilient? Or is it anti-fragile? People were asking to focus on the teachings now and not only rant about people. Let me tell you something. Focus on your learnings like I focus on my learnings. Learning and teaching are the same things. There's a saying from Lao Tzu. This is some couple thousand years before Christ. And that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And when the student is truly ready, the teacher will disappear. That's because when the student is truly ready, he has learned that the learning and the teaching is the same thing. It's called practice. And today I will give you a great practice aid, in my opinion. One of the things that will help you immensely to free your mind and to connect your cast in a different way. Let me demonstrate you again quickly what happens, in my opinion, when you meet your first casting instructor. It goes like this. Here, give me that fly rod. Here, all you have to do is form a tight loop. Here you go. You have to do this and that, and there, you just practice. You develop a feeling for that. Just takes you 20 years and just become a casting geek like me. Tight loop, tight loop, tight loop. And that scares already a shit out of you, because you stand there and you think, oh, I can never make a tight loop like that. Okay, and this is the filter that the entity puts on, the entity of casting instructors puts on. I have a communication problem, and that communication problem is called truth. If you don't like the truth, I didn't like it either at the beginning. Once you get used to it, you're gonna love it, because it will free your mind and it will take the filter off. That's why I need to ask you to start to verify and to falsify and to re-evaluate the information that casting instructors are putting out there. Okay, but still, I don't want to rant about casting instructors today anymore, and I'm only making a clear position. And my position is the position of transferring knowledge from science. Now we come to the Rle Trigger, a psychological aid that will help you to calm your mind down. And the Rle Trigger looks a little bit like this here. And this Rle Trigger gets attached here to the rod with a wire. You have to DIY a Rle Trigger yourself. You find something, put a couple of beads in, and then what I do, I take a little wire piece and mount it to the grip, or above the grip of my fly rod on the blank. I'm also not making a cast now, but you get the idea here from the Rle Trigger. The questions I have with this for you, teaching and the learning is the same thing, so you want to bite the bullet, make yourself one and do a little bit of practice and find out for yourself how this Rle Trigger will connect your mind different with the cast. This is a psychological trigger that, if you understand it, will make all of your casts at all levels better at all times. Little tool to calm down your mind, because I told you that already. The mindset in fly casting is made to scare you shitless. Okay. And the first important thing that Rle Trigger does, in my opinion, is it'll force or not. It does not force. It plays, which is very important, and it calms down your mind. And it takes you into another filter, into another world of perception. This scary shit here, forget about that. Focus. Flow follows focus, and the trigger, psycho triggers, they help you to focus in another way, to take your mind off that scary, intimidating mindset that unfortunately the entity of fly casting instructors is propagating around the world. So take this little playful trigger, make a couple of casts, or make a lot of casts, make 1,000,000 casts with it. Also show it to other people, please. Let me know what you think and let me know what they think. And the key questions to the Rle Trigger challenge are: when, how, and how strong should that Rle Trigger rattle during the cast? This is what you want to find out. And I have developed already a book full of thinking behind only this, and this is only the first little trick. No, or it's not a trick, it's a psycho trigger. It's a psychological aid to help you with the casting. And that's only the first of my
new FlyQ toolbox tools
tricks that will help you immensely to take your mind off of screwed teachings that are just only intimidating and only a filter like a stupid mask. Can take it off. Can take it off. And back to mindsets again. Fragile mindset in casting, a resilient mindset, and an anti-fragile mindset. In what category do you want to be? A fragile mindset in casting gets intimidated very easy by a fly casting instructor that poses in front of him, her, or it. And that mindset gets imitated very quickly by that mask, by that filter that has been put on. And that fragile mindset is like, oh my God, it's tight blue. I will never be able to do this. I cannot learn that. How can you do that, Mr. Super Instructor or Miss Super Instructor? I love to admire your looks, but I break already watching that because I think I can never do that. Screw that. Fuck that. A resilient mindset. It's a mindset that thinks, you masked. You do intimidate me, but I withstand that intimidation. I withstand that and I go with what I'm being told and I just do it, and I do it as long as it takes or as it don't take. Yeah? I think 80% of the casters out there never felt how a proper cast really has to feel, because the brain doesn't give them no feedback and doesn't allow them to feel even. And I can also scientifically prove that. An anti-fragile mindset. And in my opinion, I am the first fly fisher in the world with an anti-fragile mindset, and the first one who even makes all these connections. I don't know if you hear this other lame talk about fishing all the time. I caught these many fish and you had to form a tight loop. The anti-fragile mindset is characterized by gaining from disorder. The anti-fragile mindset cannot be disturbed. A mask like that is for the anti-fragile mindset irrelevant, because the anti-fragile mindset looks through that mask and asks questions that are behind that mask And it also listens from a neutral perspective, from a perspective of a true learner, to what comes out of the mask, but not how the masks look like. Okay? So, anti-fragile mindset in fly casting is what I recommend and what I teach. And the cool cast is a perfect learning metaphor, again, for anti-fragility, or however you spell that, doesn't matter. If you're interested more in anti-fragility, in resilience, and in fragility, and also in another thing we will talk about soon, that is called skin in the game, there's a scientist and economist called Nassim Taleb. You want to YouTube him up, you'll learn more about anti-fragility and resilience. That is the reason why I told you fly casting instructors are on the wrong tracks in the Flycaster meeting episode. Okay? And that is also the reason why you are scared shitless from these teachings. Your mind doesn't allow for feedback. I can prove that. Because the anti-fragile mindset shows that when you ask these questions and then you look into these things, and I prove that to you, and you can prove that to yourself, and you can prove that to any casting instructor in the world. There's a couple of very simple questions. Those questions are: how, when, and where, and why? How, when, and where do you feel a cast during the cast? That's the only question you have to ask. How do you feel a cast? Because everybody says, here, you have to practice. Go and practice. You develop a feeling for that. Yeah, go and ask these people, how do I develop a feeling? Or how do you feel the cast during the cast? Can you tell me that? And if you have no answer for this question, it is proven already that the teachings in casting are fragile. Danny Boy proved that last week too. I'm not mean to be mean. I'm just stating the facts here. And anti-fragility gains through this org. I learned from this thing. The cool cast turned me into a fly casting, studying, and learning machine. And Uga Uga, try the Psycho Trigger, try the Rle Trigger, feed me back on what you think. How, when, where, and why do you feel the cast? What makes the cast in relation to the rattle? And enjoy your time practicing. Take your worries off that tight loop and get into the flow, into the groove. Enjoy the work with the Rle Trigger. And please remember, we don't own the water owns us.